Are we good to go? Amazing. So, welcome to Global Business Culture. I'm going to add a few disclaimers, as I always do with this kind of stuff. Firstly, I will offend some of you. So please take it lightly. I will. There will be an undertone of British dark humor. Again, we're doing cultural clashes here. So anything I say that may feel a little bit unpleasant, don't tell me because I don't care. That's a very British thing to do. And it will take a weird twist towards the end, perhaps in a direction that you weren't expecting. But bear with me, inshallah, and we'll get through it. If this works, would you look at that? Thanks, Habib. It's fine. We can use this, I think. Really, huh? It's actually, there we go. So, first thing we're going to cover is why me? Why on earth am I interested in a topic like this? Because it is a bit strange. I'm going to try and give you my weird definition of business culture. Then we're going to cross-compare Omani business culture, British business culture, and I'm going to need your input on that, the positives and the negatives of it. We'll see some underlying commonalities between the two, and from that, I hope, we'll derive some sort of global business culture that will take a twist. So, to begin, why am I discussing this? Some of you may or may not know, originally, I'm from India, which is why a lot of my food is curry-based, and that's nothing racist, it's just factual. You guys eat a lot of rice, so do we. So that is my heritage, which has its own weird nuances to it. Then in the 1970s, my parents, who at this point were in Uganda, were kicked out in 1972. You may be familiar with this. It was called the expulsion. All Asians must go. That included us. We were top of the list. And we ended up in London, which is where I spent the majority of my life. And I saw some incredible life events like Brexit, for those of you who are familiar. I also saw the Queen die, not literally. I'm not going to say anything else about her. And I spent a bit of time in Paris as well, from a working perspective, because the company that I was working for 7.5 years was French-based, run by a Swiss, French, British kind of thing. So I saw a load of different cultures. But underlying all of this, and beyond obviously my presence now in Muscat, beyond all of this, this has been at my core. So in summary of my background, I'm a Muslim, British, Ugandan, Indian, who worked in the UK, Western Europe, and Oman, and I find comparing cultures weirdly interesting. So yes, I'm probably judging most things I see, so forgive me. But if you just want to ask me what's going through my head at any time, you're welcome to. I find it so fascinating, actually, that when Brexit was happening, I published an article kind of championing the fact that our business had a togetherness of cultures. And this togetherness of cultures actually brought something, what I felt was a USP to our business. And I think it's something that we start to see here when we have these nice British Omani conversations. You start to see the best elements maintain, and the worst elements, which there are on both sides, start to fall by the wayside. So what is business culture? As far as my weird simplified definition goes, I would see it as how we interact and think in a business context and get things done. It's a very broad and deliberately broad definition, but if I were to go a bit more precisely, a bit more practical, it's our behavior, our mindset, and even our style. And usually the most subtle of details has a fascinating story behind it. Why a certain culture acts in a certain way, why a certain culture dresses in a certain way, so on and so on. If you go into the details, there's always a fascinating story behind it. So some examples. At lunch, the Brits traditionally are known to have crumbs in their keyboard, i.e. you just eat at your desk. And usually it's a really bad quality. How many of you guys have been to the UK, just a show of hands? How many of you guys have bought a meal deal from Tesco? Yeah, now we're talking, right? So those of you who had meal deal from Tesco, that's the real stuff, right? And inflation, subhanAllah, from £3 to £3.50, now they're selective over what you can get in it. It's crazy. But the essence is you get crumbs in your keyboard. Contrast to the French business that I was then working for, who an hour-and-a-half break at a restaurant is as obligatory as praying is for Muslims. Unbelievable. And they actually found it strange. And initially, we had half French, half Brits in the office. And you'd see the exodus of the French guys to the restaurant for an hour and a half. And the Brit guys run out for 5 minutes, come back, and then that slice open of the sandwich, for those of you who know how those triangle sandwiches work. And that's it. You're typing with one hand, and you're eating with the other. Greetings. Wow, this was difficult in France, I'll tell you that much. To the extent that shaking the woman's hand was my defense to get away from this. Welcome to the difficulty of working for a French company. I don't have to worry about that so much here. Instead, I have to worry about men kissing me on the cheek instead in the Arab world. And in the British world, it's very normal that when someone comes in, you'll just eye roll them and probably just say morning. And that's about as far as it goes. Anything more than that is a bit too loving, actually. Decision making as well. Some cultures are very top down. Some are a bit more democratic, bottom up, or at least they claim to be democratic. And mindsets. Very capitalist societies, it's all about living so you can work. But in more socialist contexts, you work solely just so that you can live. And these all play very interesting dynamics when you then look at a business culture. So I want to look at the British culture to begin with. Because I'm from Indian heritage, it means I'm a bit stingy on money, which means that I've only got 25 users max, otherwise I had to pay for the full plan. So for the first 25 of you that can scan this, I'm going to ask you for single word descriptions about the British culture. Let me know if it's zoomed in enough. And if you didn't manage to get in, just say the words to the person next to you. There. If not, just join through that link. And just someone show me if it's working for them, if you're in and if you're able to add, yeah? You're able to add words, or is it still saying loading or something?
Yeah, I can.
You can? Amazing. Crack on. Formal, yeah, fair enough. This is British culture, by the way, not Omani. I'm assuming cutthroat was meant to be one word, but it's cut into two. Formal. Drinking. Wow. Wow. Welcome to the challenge of being a Muslim in Britain. Not lovely. That's very diplomatic. Tight. Rude. Wow. Jesus, you guys really hate us. I was about to say, what did we do to you guys? But I'm sure we did something to everyone, to be honest. Grey, fair. Political. Woke, yeah. We'll give you another 20 seconds on this. Oppressive. Wow, okay. I feel there's some therapy going on here as well, right? I know we're not angels, but it's not all of us, you know? In the workplace, we're not that oppressive. Vulgar. Whoa.
Apparently, you're not the only one who's going to offend someone.
Yeah, it's going to work two ways. I'm glad. We've opened the doors. Wonderful. I may actually, if someone online can take a screenshot of this, I'd be very grateful. Yeah, please. Don't worry, I'll send these to the British government, and then good luck getting your visas when you next go. Works two ways.
I thought the picture was confidential.
Never.
Oh.
Never. Nothing is
Have
confidential.
in the back end.
There's no free lunch. Amazing. Thank you, actually. This is what I would say the positives are. Clearly not if you had any positives for us, but I think we're pragmatic. Would you agree? We get stuff done. I think it's fair to say. We're punctual. We're very, very, very strict on time. We're quite analytical, sometimes too much, because we think we're smarter than everyone else in the world. We have a very, very dark humor.
So you should have said dark humor, not funny.
Oh, I like this. But you're laughing, so it's working. And we think we're non-hierarchical in this new wave of business. We think we're non-hierarchical. So nowadays, there are some weird stereotypes that especially in a startup, if the management have their own offices, people are like, oh, check you out, you know. So there is like an attempt to be non-hierarchical, but I don't really believe it. But this is something that we claim anyway. One thing that we do quite well is that we're self-deprecating for the sake of trying to be funny. What does that mean? We're happy to insult ourselves. We're happy to not overplay ourselves. And how this plays out in a business dynamic is quite subtle. At the start of a sales meeting, if you were to send someone that's never sold before, they'd go in and boast about everything they've done. In the UK, that's the worst way to begin a sales meeting. So this kind of person, don't do it. It's really not fun. But instead, and I've seen it and I've done it, you actually downplay yourself, which is a very strange dynamic. And then you let your product or your service or your understanding of their problem do the talking. But definitely don't pretend to be someone. And we made this mistake when we first moved to London. We said, we hire engineers and business guys from Cambridge and Oxford. And they were just like, you're just too pretentious. And we couldn't win anything. Whereas in France, this worked a wonder, an absolute wonder. Our negatives, I think you guys covered the most of them. Although this first one less so, we avoid confrontation a lot. And I'll show you in the next slide some of the examples of how we struggle to communicate in a way that's direct enough. We're very impersonal when it comes to work, typically speaking, especially compared to the Omanis. Lunch at your desk, we discussed. Privileged, I do think, and maybe you guys would agree given the amazing comments that you shared, we do have a bit of we're the Brits. You know, we know how to do it. You sit in the corner and let us do what we need to do. It's so bad that we'll be like, oh yeah, just offshore it to those, insert culture. And it's kind of like, yeah, just let them do the boring work. You know, we're too good for this. So there is a level of privilege, not a level, there is a lot of privilege in it, let's be true. And this one, which I think some of you wrote, thank you, very, very, very drink-centric in the workplace. Everything revolves around drinks that we're not allowed to consume. And here's some of the things that we try to mean, but we end up saying. So when I say that we are unable to be confrontational, I mean that we'll say, oh, I was a bit disappointed by that, meaning I'm actually really, really frustrated, deeply frustrated. But I don't want to say it to you because I'm too British about it. A classic one is, I'm sure it's my fault. 100% it's not your fault. You're just trying to continue the conversation. There's a load of these that I'm sure if you hear me say, you can now, just translate it on here and, you'll know what I'm saying. So the next time that I tell you, oh, that's a really interesting view.
We should print this and
put it on my forehead. It'll help. So we avoid confrontation a lot. Now, we're going to turn it back on you guys. So we're going to jump to the Omanis. This I'm quite intrigued about. So again, try, scan that. Has it updated? Oof. I think that's harsh. Omani's being stingy? I've found Omanis to be probably the most generous people I've come across, to be honest. Say again?
You haven't been to other Gulf countries.
Ah, okay, fair enough. You guys are the exemplars. Neshmi meaning?
Neshmi means
Say
the opposite of chivalrous.
Chivalrous. Why don't I believe that means chivalrous? Does it actually mean it?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's like you're this man who can be dependent on hospital.
So we've got men who are dependent upon who are stingy, chilled, and lazy. Sounds very dependable.
Which is why that word is small.
Yeah, only one person. Amazing. Thank you. Okay, cool. So this is what I've seen of the Omanis from my very, very brief experience here. So maybe some of them you guys will disagree. I think you're very personable. Very, very, very personable, very loving, deeply respectful, especially when it comes to intergender, interfamily, interfaith even. I think there's a lot of mutual respect. There's a lot of deep-rooted values in what you guys do. Unlike the Brits, where I think our values have got a bit mixed up from a mix of imperialism plus a load of cultures that we're together with, it's very, very convoluted. But I think you guys have quite a strong set of values that drives a lot of how you talk and do business. Negotiators, and maybe ironically too much sometimes, it's like the price and then the price, there's like a difference. And then you ask one more time and okay, then I've got the price, we're good. And this one's quite powerful. Work isn't life.
Yeah.
There is quite a beautiful balance. Again, maybe sometimes we go too far one way, as some of those words suggested. So those are the positives. Deep breath.
We are good at it.
Potentially not, because I'll probably get fired. So you guys are perfect. Thanks for giving me a chance to work here. It's been great. I was trying to find a gift that said, get out of the country, but it wasn't quite working out. So I will share some negatives, but I think you guys did this for me anyway. Laid back, I think we all put down that. We're a bit slow. There is a bit of a top-down thing here. People have got to sign, the top have got to sign. Bureaucracy, I'll give you some fun examples that we were discussing the other day. There is some showiness. Yeah, there's some head nods there. And maybe a bit exclusive. I've found it's tough to break into some circles. So you're not Omani. You can be friends, but not this close. will keep you at an arm's length. That's something that I've tasted a little bit. So again, don't at me. This is just, it's just feelings. That's all. So showy. This is personally my favorite. I've never seen a culture take so many pictures in my life when it comes to business. From MOUs to almost, it feels like NDAs sometimes. Like, what are you actually celebrating here? Khalas, we need a picture. Oh, okay, fine. And Khatiya, I think, is a bit like this guy. Just get out the way. Let me crack on with what I need to do. So that's one thing. We're a bit showy maybe sometimes. And the bureaucracy part was quite hilarious. This probably doesn't make too much sense, but I'll read it. There was a... and maybe something that can be improved in some time. So let's try and compare these. In a sales context, you see two stark differences. On the one hand, in the Brits, we very rarely pitch, and this is from a services perspective. But in Oman, I've seen it's very normal that you turn up to a business for the first time, and it's your time to shine. You say all these services that you have, everything that you've been able to do, all your accomplishments. And if we go back to that woman, which is like, I'm kind of a big deal, that wouldn't go down too well in the UK in most scenarios. Case studies here rule over everything. There was one meeting I was in where they're like, so have you done this exact thing in this specific industry? It's like, no, we haven't. Okay, then I can't speak to you. It's a bit dismissive, Yes, industries have their nuance, but you guys have the industry expertise. We have the technological expertise. Together, this could be quite a nice partnership, but it seems like everyone wants exactly the thing that they're looking for, which is good because it forces high quality. But in a market where there's limited number of suppliers, you may end up not having enough suppliers. There's loads more. I don't want to go through too many. Maybe just quickly, we're very chilled when it comes to clothing. In Oman, there's very strict procedures. I wasn't allowed in one of the ministries without my fancy hat. We still haven't had the big ceremony for that, so we can do it one day. The client in the UK is very willing to talk about problems. Here, it was very, very tricky. They were a bit more guarded, a bit more reserved about how much they wanted to share initially. And lastly, you can get things done a bit quicker in the UK, whereas here there's a lot more diligence that goes through things, which I think would probably help the Brits in some cases because we like to spend £37 billion on COVID testing apps that don't eventually deliver anything. But anyway, let's not look at that too much. From an employee context, I think the Omanis typically like to get to know their employees a lot more deeply. You'll typically find people knowing their ancestry, what dialect of Arabic they're speaking, what kind of food they have more normally. And for us, you're just Sadiq, the guy who lives somewhere too far and he's late a bit of the times the office as a result. I don't know how normal this is, but I felt, at least from my aunt's experience in Oman, it's quite normal that employees on occasions will have family ties in some ways, maybe because the communities are quite close-knit. Whereas in the UK, you're never, ever, ever, ever coming to my wedding. It's just not happening. Unless you're like the bestie of the bestie, then maybe. But work colleagues, no, you're not getting anywhere near. Anything at all personal, nowhere. Gift giving here is absolutely natural, and I'm awful. My gift game is terrible. In the UK, I'm not going to out my old company, but let's say I didn't have many gifts when I left. Here, 5-minute welcomes. Farsi's been teaching me I don't know how many different greetings over the last 6 months, and there's still a new one every week. Whereas, as I said, in the UK, morning and you're done. That's it. You just walk past and you don't even care about it. Sometimes when you see the angry guy walking in and he just grumbles it, he still has to say it. So it's kind of funny to see them go, oh, yeah, morning. It's kind of enjoyable. In any case, these are stereotypes, right? They are stereotypes. There's exceptions to every rule. And I think the more that we are connected to the digital world, cultures are crossing over a hell of a lot more. And in fact, I would argue, where there was once a thing called the American dream, and everyone would move to America to chase it, now this American dream, or this dream, whatever you want to call it, is just accessed digitally. So you don't need to be in the same geographical place to share a culture anymore. There is, unfortunately, a TikTok culture. There is, unfortunately, an Insta culture. The concept of flexing is unanimously known nowadays because of Instagram. It's a common parlance between two people who don't even speak the same language, which is crazy when you think about it. So there are overriding themes, there are differences, there are some stereotypes, and the idea of today's talk is not to focus too much on the stereotypes. Where I'd like to take it is a bit of a twist, to try and reach the concept of a global culture. This beautiful verse in the Quran in Surah 49, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لَتَعَارَفُوا, that we've made you as races and tribes that you may get mutually acquainted, that you can get to know one another, that you can get to be together and learn from one another. And ultimately, the most honorable among you in the view of Allah is the most pious. That is the core of it. You get to know these cultures to find piety, to get to know how to be in the presence of a greater, superior Lord to you. We're meant to get acquainted. That's the idea of it. We're meant to understand one another. We're meant to take the best from one and leave the worst from the other side. So if I'm always scruffy when I turn up to work, but you're always well kept, that's something that I can take from you. Equally, if I'm very thorough and diligent in my work, but you're very vague, that's something that you can take from me. That's where this getting to know one another can lead to a better culture, to a better global business culture, if you like. So I tried to look at what could be defined as a global business culture. And I think everyone in the world would want a client, a provider, a manager, a team member to be an amazing listener. I think everyone unanimously would agree on this. They'd want them to be just and fair. Don't let me always get away with being late. But equally, don't call me out when I'm 30 seconds late for the first time. Be just, be fair, be reasonable. I want you to be responsive. Don't take 3 days, 5 days, 1 week to get back to me. If I ask you a question, it's not that difficult to reply to me. Fine, maybe not straight away, but soon. Don't leave me hanging just because, I can't be bothered, or I need to go to this lunch. Just respond to me. We want wisdom, not just selling. We want value, insight, wisdom. Truthfulness, it's a given, yet such a rarity in business nowadays. And even in general relations, this has become so weirdly taken away from our normal existence that now falsifying things, even in politics, justifies wars for years and decades and centuries. We want people who are capable, who are forgiving, who are loving, secure, honorable. I don't think anyone in the world, no matter what time period you look into, is going to look at this and be like, no, I don't want that. I don't want someone that's not. I don't want someone that's truthful. I'd rather have a liar in my team. Doesn't really make sense. So I believe that we all unite over these traits. And more precisely, I showed you 10. I believe there's 89 more traits that we all align on. And if you guys are now on the same wavelength as me, 10 plus 89 is? Oh, what a familiar number. We'll come to it. All rational human beings across all civilizations, any time period, would have valued these very things. Why? Because it's within us. Within every single human being, we are attracted to these 99 traits. We all deep down value honesty. We deep down value integrity. We value wisdom. These are things that are just very normal for us. Why? My argument is that there is a creator who has these 99 traits. And within every single creation, we've been born from them. And therefore, we're attracted back to them constantly. Because at our core, we're all the same. No matter what race or time period, a gesture like giving someone some food will always be respected. A gesture like giving someone an umbrella when it's raining, I know you guys aren't too used to that, is a gesture that's greatly appreciated in the UK. It doesn't matter who gave it to you, it's someone that's looking out for you. These are common traits. And therefore, I believe that in all situations that we face, we need to prioritize two things. One, be aware that there's a greater presence over us, analyzing on how we're doing in these skill sets. And in the equal measure, perform those very traits that manifest that all-wise creator. And this is what I believe creates a global business culture that everyone in the world will align on. So when you see an opportunity to sell, but you need to, just tell them it's like this. Just bend the truth slightly. Remember that there is al-basir that's always looking at you, assessing, are you saying what you're able to do, or are you bending the truth for the sake of it? Remember that the next time that you're frustrated and upset and even getting stressed or anxious at home, that you're not going to get enough cash to take home, you're going to miss your salary, you're going to miss your bonus, you're going to whatever it is, that there is the sustainer that is behind you, that has already written how much you're going to get anyway. Just work hard. Remember that if when you're nervous and you're entering a very tough conversation with a colleague or whoever it is in your business life, that there is al-waliyu, there is the one that's your protecting associate that's going to look after you. Ultimately, it's back to his opinion of you, not your interlocutor's opinion of you. And when you've got a client or a vendor or a team member and they make an honest mistake, don't pounce on them. Rather manifest the attributes of the one that's most forgiving. And if they continue to make mistakes, even deliberately, then yes, at that point you do need to hold a firm and utterly just line. But remember, that doesn't mean you now go crazy at them. You're utterly just. You're al-adlu. And in the last example, when you've got loads of clients and it's easy to just give them basic pieces of information, they don't value that. They value deep insight. They value deep wisdom. And you can manifest that as well. This is what we're naturally attracted to, what clients are naturally attracted to, what vendors are naturally attracted to, what your team is naturally attracted to. So I said that this was about the global business culture, but in reality what I think this is that it's a godly business culture. And I believe the godly business culture is global and is timeless. And I think this is what we've seen from the start and will continue to see until the end. And there was a man who I revere a lot, Ali, son of Abu Talib, who wrote a letter to the soon-to-be governor of Egypt, Malik al-Ashtar. Many of you are familiar with these names. And he has a phenomenal letter that he writes to him about how he needs to go and run this country, which we can understand not just running a country from, but also running a business from, and even running a team, and even being an employee. And I want to share with you 6 things from that letter, and then we'll draw it to a close. One of the things that he highlights on is to love your people. He says to him, develop in your heart. Remember, this is to Malik, who is now going to govern people. So that for those of you in management, in leadership, even just looking after a team of 1 or 2, make sure you love your people. Develop in your heart the feeling of love for your people. Don't behave with them like a barbarian. Don't jump on them when they make a mistake. Understand them like you would understand someone that you love. Control yourself. Because when you're in these positions, the ego can become a big, big factor. You've got to be on top of these feelings. Be merciful for them. Don't overstep the mark. This wording is incredible. Do not feel sorry over any act of forgiveness. I.e., if you forgive someone, don't feel like, oh, should I have forgiven them? Did I let them off too lightly? No. Be more forgiving than anything. And equally, don't rejoice over any punishment. Don't give them a hard time and then celebrate it with your colleagues. That is not someone who is a just leader in a godly business culture. 3 more that I share. Get things done on time. This is an individual one. Don't make haste to do a thing before it's time, nor put it off when the right moment arrives. Get stuff done. That is the godly business culture. Stop procrastinating. Move. Be on it. Be focused. Be firm. Correct things as soon as possible, i.e. do not show slackness in rectifying a wrong thing. We sit on things that we know are incorrect, and our attitude sometimes like, oh, if they don't find out about it, then it's okay. That's not the godly business culture. And finally, but by no means least, when the people as a whole agree upon a thing, when your team is saying for you to go in direction X, and it's compelling, and it's real, and it's evidence-based, don't let your ego go, well, I think it's better and we're going to do it this way. Yes, debate them. Yes, debate them. But don't always use, well, I'm the leader and this is my way, because that's the fast-track way to losing your team. So I end with this. The godly business culture that is global and timeless, it's something that we need to make our own culture. And you can procrastinate on it and say, yeah, from tomorrow I'll start being honest. From tomorrow I'll start turning up on time. From tomorrow I'll stop lying to my clients. From tomorrow, whatever, from tomorrow. This very same man tells us that death is the brother of sleep. In the same way that you go to sleep very easily at night, the same way we'll lose tomorrow before we know it. So I hope you'll join me on the godly business culture. I'm trying. It's very, very difficult. And I hope, inshallah, that you guys will be amazing, amazing assets to this culture, inshallah. Thank you for listening. You're asking the question first? I never would have believed it.
I was compelled. I was forced. It's hard to ask you a question that you would not just resort to saying this is the answer, because no one can argue against that. But if you go back to the slides with the pros and cons of the Omani and British culture, if you can get the best of both worlds, put aside the global godly culture,
Yes.
just based on where you lived, what would you keep or would you discard? 5 of them.
There was a comparison, but with long words. If we want the traits, it's just this part.
Yes. What would you keep? Or what would you replace with the UK positives?
I think the UK needs to learn a bit of this.
Okay.
We developed a culture where you boast about how long you work and how little you see your family.
Okay.
It
Why is
became-
that negative?
How
From
li-
someone who experienced it.
Oh, because your priorities are completely twisted. You know, there's that classic thing, and we've seen it so many times, unfortunately, when someone passes away, that business the next day has to start hiring for that position, but the family can't hire. That's not to now be like, that's it, family full-time, and then you go to the extreme. No, you need to work, and you've got to treat your employee with the utmost of respect, because they are a source for you off your risk, off your money. So you need to go and earn it and be proper with them. So I think we need to balance this a little bit more in the UK. Weirdly, I know this is going to be maybe a bit weird. I hate this passionately. I really hate it because in my head, it brews a level of dishonesty from the first conversation. If I say to you, this costs 10 riyals, and you trust me, and you know I'm a decent guy, then you know, yes, I'm making a profit out of this because it's a business, but yes, I'm also not doing you over because I'm recognizing that I'm going to get done over in the next life if I'm going out and doing people over. So I think this kind of becomes a very messy game. I think it's the only word I can use to describe it, messy. Not to say it doesn't happen in the UK, of course it does. But I think, say again? Just for the fun of it, right? It is, you get a kick out of it, right? You go over, oh, I got something.
No, Sadiq, I think this is a result of a series of very bad
Practices or...
words.
Ah,
Early Renaissance times. That's why I think,
probably.
yeah.
Probably, and I'm sure there's a level of imperialism going on in there, right? We want to get the most out of you, even if you have to beg for it, and you know, it's a power struggle. I think at the end of the day.
What's one UK positive that you would bring here?
One UK positive that I'd bring here? I didn't get fired yet. That's good. Let's go back. One UK positive I'd bring here.
Punctual, huh?
You know, weirdly, I found you guys to be very punctual to meetings. I found this very strange, actually.
Because we are the vendor. We
No,
can't afford
even
being late.
clients. I don't know. Maybe it's a weird experience. I think we can be more pragmatic. We need maybe a bit of a bias to just get stuff done sometimes.
And one last question. Go to the slide where the UK translation of things that you say.
Oh,
Which one did you use most commonly?
yeah. It's got to be this. It's got to be
Very
this.
interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
I can imagine.
It's got to be this.
Did you ever use with all due respect?
No, I'm a bit more upfront on that.
You missed one.
Yeah. Go on.
You missed one.
Which one?
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree. There's a lot. And ironically, but when we'd have conversations with our French counterparts, would become a big issue. We couldn't understand each other.
Oh.
Yeah. If we said to the French, like, oh, very interesting, that's it. They're like, okay, he's genuinely interested. He likes this proposition. We're good. So that was always fun.
Interesting. Oh, that's a good story.
Which part?
The part with
Ah.
Damani.
Yeah, so the meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, it was from 11 till 1 or 12 till 2? 11 till 1. So we're an hour into the meeting, and again, something I'm not used to from the UK, a guy comes in to like start giving you water and stuff. I'm really not used to that. So I'm thinking, okay, cool, he's giving us water, that's really kind. He walks out again, next thing you know, he comes in, but this time opens the door and ensures it stays open. I'm like, okay, well, what's coming? Next thing you know, there's another guy that comes with a push trolley, and there are these 2 Pizza Hut limousines. And he lays it out on the table in the middle of the meeting. I was like, yo, I can get used to this, you know? Here's me having my Tesco meal deal if I'm lucky, and this guy's serving me lunch in the meeting. It was incredible, really incredible. The French wouldn't have approved. They would have said you have to leave the office and go and eat this outside. And they were like, fast food, this is too unhealthy, you know? But as Brits, yeah, it was great. Not yet. Make dua. We're good? Just to you. Yes.
By the way, in Oman, their public is known that they always make compliments. The Omani culture, they're good in compliments.
Yes.
So I believe that's the reason why in the form that you designed, when you had that last question of the survey, it says, are you very
Recommendation,
interested?
yes.
Or what was that?
So would you recommend? And it was yes, absolutely yes, not really, not at all. Yeah.
For the same reason, for that, based on those standards,
Yes.
you mentioned that yes is
It's not acceptable. Yes. So so similar thing in the UK, everyone would say yes. If a client in the UK says not really, you're really in trouble. I think that's probably the same principle here. Whereas my French clients had no hesitation. The only times I got a negative, like a no, not really, not at all, was just French clients, exclusively. And once a Greek client, actually. He worked for a very big global strategic consultancy. I'm sure you can guess who that is. So he was more than happy to share how he felt.
What trait, other than these, other than the ones that are here,
Yeah.
that makes you most upset? A trait that makes you most upset?
How deep can I go?
Well, the floor is yours.
That's-
The floor is yours.
Be diplomatic. though.
I'm a Brit. I'm very good at diplomacy. Very good. I think what I've just shared today is of no surprise to anyone and is maybe more of a reminder to everyone here. I think what upsets me is that, and I know not everyone here and listening is Muslim, but as Muslims, I believe we have the cheat sheet and we have the mark scheme for the next life and to how to succeed in this life. And whilst we've had this mark scheme and we have the best examples and the best role models that fulfill this in every facet of their life, we've not utilized it at all. And we've kind of gone, you know what? I'm going to do it my way because I believe it's better now, even though these concepts are timeless. So I think the value that frustrates me is maybe a level of ego or oversight, if I can be a bit more chilled on the wording, oversight of what we have. Because what we have is perfect, but we're trying to push something imperfect and now going, oh, it's not working, I wonder why. Because we strayed from perfection. So hopefully that gives you a feeling.
So my question is comparing to the Omani culture, have you found any difficulties dealing with the other gender, females يعني, mainly?
Yeah, it's a
in
really
British.
good one. It's a really good question. Yes, for sure. Unsurprisingly, and to no one's surprise, in the UK, intergender relations are much more fluid. I'm not talking about changing of genders, that's also become fluid. But the conversation between genders is very, very normal. It's very normalized. Dangerously normalized, I'd go as far as saying actually, very dangerously normalized. Here, when you want to work with as a male, when you want to work with a female team member, you still need to build this underlying level of trust with them if you want to give them tough feedback or even praise them, right? Tough feedback can come across the wrong way if you don't have trust, and complimenting someone's work can really come across the wrong way, especially in the way that the society is, which I respect and agree with. How we can crack this fine line within Shara'i boundaries is a topic we're going to have to figure out. And I really have no answer for it yet. It's a conundrum I've been discussing a lot with friends, trying to see what angles exist. But I think what I appreciate a lot is that the line is respected from both sides. Whereas in the UK, where you try and be a little bit more what they would perceive to be reserved, the woman may be like, oh, he's so cold with me. Like, I'm not being cold, I'm just being respectful towards you, but our understanding of respect maybe isn't the same, you know, unfortunately. And that can have a big impact. I remember one that really hit me was that our business team predominantly was made up of, well, predominantly like 60% women, 40% men. And there was a criticism I had, which is that you don't celebrate with the team enough. I was like, well, the challenge is that the celebration is always over alcohol, and it's usually a celebration, like a massive party. And I'll just give you a quick anecdote on that. I remember in 2016 when I first joined the company, there was a company trip to Barcelona. So fine, we went. On the Friday was a conference. We attended the conference, that was fine. And then Saturday, Sunday, just did whatever you want, and then we're going back Sunday evening. Fine. So I go, the conference, whatever, couldn't eat a thing because everything had pork or ham or whatever. So I'm very happy to be here and have lunch wherever I want, which is great. So the conference finished, and then they said, so the event this evening is at, 7 p.m. at this place. And I was just maybe 6 months or whatever into the job. No, it was, 6 months, September. 6 months, 9 months into the job. So I was like, okay, let's see. It's at a restaurant. I'm like, okay, maybe this is doable. So I go, and they're like, are you with the company? Yeah, okay, just go around to the side. You've got your own space. I was like, great. Walk in, a few of my colleagues there, we walked to the side, and it was, from our perspective, dodgy. Let's just put it that way. It was extremely mixed. They were serving champagne to everyone and whatever, but that's very normal in business receptions there, and there I am, like, squeezing my hands. Again, I can't eat any of this food or whatever. So already I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Okay, let's see what happens. Everyone's talking, whatever. Even simple things like someone will be holding a glass of champagne. They're like, Sadiq, as they'd call you. Sadiq, good to see you. Change hand, and you know their hand is slightly dripping with a bit of alcohol. You're like, what do I do in this situation? I remember one in particular, a guy came up to me, and you saw that he spilt a bit of his drink in his hand, then taps you on the back of your jacket, and you're like, man alive, give me a break. I have to tahara everything when I get home and hose it down. So burn it, yeah, that's it, get rid of it. So all this is going on, but from a general perspective, nothing else. It was just very whatever. The CEO gets on stage. I remember this so clearly. It's actually brings me shivers. And he's like, guys, we've done so well as a company. In the last whatever years, we've grown this much. We've now got 3 different businesses. And he's like, to the old business, celebrate and they go crazy. To the mobile business and they went crazy. To our UK friends we've just joined, there was 8 of us. And we're like, great. And he goes, we've worked so hard and we've achieved amazing results. And tonight we're going to show Barcelona how we celebrate. The moment he said these words, lights dimmed, music blared, and then all these showy lights started kicking off, and I was like, "As-salama." I was out, panicked, feeling I was off to hell, in that very second. And where did I end up? As a classic Muslim in Europe, I'm trying to find halal food now because I didn't get to eat, and I end up at a Pakistani restaurant in the middle of Barcelona, and I felt finally at ease again. So these are some of the fun cultural challenges I'm relishing that I don't have to deal with anymore, which is nice. So when Azan next says, let's show Oman how we party, I think we need to get out our prayer mats and... Yes.
You mentioned the term bureaucratic under the negatives
Yes.
of Omanis. I hope you're only referring here to POs, or basically when it comes to POs, yes, it's bureaucratic, of course, because generally speaking, what I found here in Oman, especially in the Gulf countries, services, or mainly governmental services, they all happen to be processed swiftly. Like when you go to the street now and try to buy a car, you can buy a car in about less than an hour. I don't think it's the same case in Europe or in UK. There are
Buying it from you, it's fast.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of...
Yeah, we should. Muslim should do a 1 hour discussion.
I beg to differ, honestly.
Hey.
Think of it outside of business. Think about
Hey,
families.
yes.
No, think about families. When you propose to someone, you want to get married. Think of the bureaucracy that you go through
Yeah.
just to be cleared for a green light to propose. So it's built within our culture.
يحق الحق وما أعرف إيش.
Exactly.
I think it's. I put it this way. Again, another weird anecdote. I saw Muhammad at the printer, I think in my first or second month, and I remember he had a big stash of papers and trying to fit them into one envelope, and then you said you have to put that envelope into another envelope, and was there a third envelope?
No,
just two.
There was that red thingy. شمع.
There was all sorts going on,
Yeah.
and if that's not bureaucracy that needs to go in this number of envelopes and then
Yeah.
delivered to the person,
True. Yeah. When it comes to tendering and POs.
yeah.
Not just tendering.
There's other aspects as well.
Questions?
All good?
Any questions?
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time.